Hello, Joel Tadman here from Golf Monthly, and you join me here at West Hill Golf Club for what I hope you think is one of the more exciting comparison videos we've done in 2018. This one is all about utility irons. Now, it seems to be a bit of a growing trend among golfers of different abilities, swapping out their hybrids for a utility irons. They come in all different sizes and shapes, and a lot of you like the look of an iron compared to a hybrid, as well as the performance characteristics of a hybrid, perhaps getting the ball up in the air a little bit too easily. Perhaps a lot of you are switching out for the more penetrating, workable flight of a utility iron. And I've got in front of me what are 5 of what we think are the best utility irons you can buy this year. I'll go through them all. They're a bit muddy, as you can probably see. That's because I've been giving them a thorough test here on the range at West Hill, as well as at Foresight Sports HQ in Guildford on the GC quad, using premium golf balls to get some dry ball data, which we'll come on to in a second. But let's take you through the 5 models we've got here in this test. Worth noting that utility irons come in different lofts across different brands, so it wasn't possible to get a direct comparison between all 5 of these favourites that we've picked. So we've had to pick the lofts that were as close to each other as we could get, but we'll come on to that in the distance data shortly. So without further ado, we have the TaylorMade Gapper Low in 18.5 degrees. So that's the lowest lofted utility iron we have on this test. We've got the Titleist 718 TMB, which comes in at 20 degrees. We've got the Srixon ZU85, that's also 20 degrees. We've got the Ping G400 crossover in 22 degrees. And we've got the Callaway X-Forged UT iron in 21 degrees. So some slight disparity in loft, but we're going to go through the numbers and various different categories golfers look for when choosing a utility iron in this video. So let's start off with the looks. So looks play obviously a very big part in the confidence you get over the ball with a club, especially a utility iron, in that gap between your fairway and your longest iron. For me, they all look pretty good. For me, the G400 does look a little bit game improver. Compared to the other 4, this is much chunkier, longer from front to back, wider sole, thicker top line, all those sorts of things. So it does have kind of a mid to high handicap look about it, which is why I probably wouldn't choose that. But the other 4, there's not much in it between them, to be honest. The Srixon ZU85 I like because it has a reflective area on the back, which makes the sole width look narrower than it is, because you can't really see the back edge that protrudes behind the top line. So I quite like that. I'd say the Titleist TMB is the most compact. It's got the narrowest sole, has the most iron-like look, if you like it. Probably the least confidence inspiring behind the ball. But for the better player, I think they're really going to appreciate the look of this club. Nice thin top line, not much offset there. So definitely one designed more for the better player. And then that leaves us with the Callaway and the TaylorMade. The Callaway, there really isn't much to dislike about it. It's pretty straightforward, a little bit offset, thickish top line. Strikes a nice balance for me between being confidence inspiring but also geared towards a slightly good player. So I really like the balance that this club has. And then finally we have the TaylorMade Gapper Low. Now this is similar to the Callaway in that it's quite compact behind the ball. Obviously it has the darker finish compared to the others, which have more of a chrome finish. Again, doesn't inspire loads of confidence, comes in a few different options. Obviously you've got the mid as well, which is a larger option if you want something that's going to look a bit more forgiving. This certainly doesn't look overly forgiving, has the kind of cutout section on the back. If I had to pick one based on looks alone, I like my utility iron to look like a slightly thicker long iron, so that's why I'd probably opt for the Callaway or the TaylorMade. When it comes to forgiveness, there really was one standout winner, and that is the Ping G400 crossover. Like I mentioned in the looks category, it has a much larger overall footprint down by the ball. There's loads of length there from the heel to toe. You really do feel like you can't miss a relatively central point on the face because it is so large. Nice wide sole, is very forgiving through the serve, so if you do catch it slightly heavy, there's a bit of forgiveness there. A little bit of offset, a very thick top line. If you're looking for something that is out and out forgiving, going to get the ball up in the air really easily and provide a lot of help and assistance on off-centre hits, there's no question the Ping G400 crossover is the standout winner. Now next we're going to talk about distance, and I appreciate this probably isn't massively fair on the Ping, which is obviously higher lofted than the others. But I'm going to try and critique this based on what I feel would provide the most distance if they were all the same loft based on the numbers that I got from the GC Quad launch monitor. And for me, there was a bit of a standout winner in the TaylorMade Gapper Low. Now obviously I know this is the lowest lofted club on test at 18.5 degrees, but still the distances I was getting from this club far surpassed where I was expecting it to be compared to the other models in the test. It feels incredibly hot off the face, and that does translate into ball speed and distance. You can see from the numbers the ball speed was significantly higher than the other models on test. Next behind it was the Srixon. I wouldn't say the Srixon was massively forgiving for me, but when you do strike it out of the middle, the ball speed is very, very impressive, and that wasn't massively far behind the TaylorMade and the Titleist as well. Similar to the Srixon, not overly forgiving because of its modest size, but when you strike it out of the middle, it feels fantastic and does give some very good ball speed and carry numbers as well. So if you're looking for a club that is geared mostly for distance, perhaps you want to use it mostly off the tee as a fairway wood or long iron replacement, or of course a hybrid replacement that's perhaps going to give you a slightly more penetrating flight, there's no question the TaylorMade Gapper Low is the standout performer, with the other three besides the Ping, so the Titleist, the Srixon and the Callaway, kind of not far behind in offering a nice balance of ball speed and maybe a slightly higher ball flight, obviously the higher lofts that we tested here. But I think regardless of the loft that you pick, if I was to get a comparable loft with a TaylorMade up against these lot, I do think the TaylorMade would still come out on top. Now versatility is a really important category when it comes to utility irons. These irons have to do a lot of different jobs. You want to be able to hit them off the tee, but if they're going to take a place of a hybrid in your bag, you want to be able to hit them into greens as well, maybe on the second shots into par fives. And that's where perhaps the TaylorMade Gapper Low does fall down a little bit. Obviously it has a slightly more penetrating flight than the others. Don't get me wrong, considering it is the lowest lofted, it was actually getting the ball up fairly high, but it was quite low spinning. So for me, wouldn't be an ideal option into greens, where I'd probably switch over to the Gapper Mid if I wanted a club that would hit more into greens. The Ping G400 crossover is an excellent option. Like I said, it gets the ball up in the air very easily, it's very forgiving, and it has a nice wide sole there. Perhaps you can't alter the flight as much with it, so I probably wouldn't rate this especially high when it comes to versatility, because off the tee it does tend to get the ball up in the air a little bit too easily with that wide sole and kind of perimeter weighting. Now left with the Srixon, the Titleist and the Callaway. All three are kind of in the middle in terms of that sole width and general performance in terms of ball flight. They all give good distance on a mid to high ball flight, so you could potentially go down an option in either of these, but for me the Srixon does slightly edge it. It's just that wider sole there with that shaping on it just seemed to be a bit more forgiving through the turf. Testing on the range here, felt like I could kind of hit the ball flight high and low depending on what I wanted to do with it. Yes, it's not overly forgiving, but it does seem to give me the shot shaping options and ball flight alterations that I'm looking for in this club. When hitting into the wind, downwind, you want to be able to alter the trajectory, and the Srixon seemed to do that. But I would say that the Callaway and Titleist weren't far behind. I actually really like both of these clubs. The Titleist especially, I thought, is surprisingly forgiving for what is the most compact iron in this test. You can see it's got the narrowest sole and the thinnest top line, probably least offset as well. So considering how small it is, surprisingly hot and surprisingly user-friendly across a variety of strike points. So highly commended goes to the Titleist, but in terms of versatility, it would probably be the Srixon or the Callaway. For me, the winner of this utility iron comparison video is the TaylorMade Gapper Low. Now, I know what you're going to say, oh, it's the lowest lofted, therefore it's going to go the furthest, and that's why you picked it. And that is kind of one of the reasons, but there are many other reasons that I've picked this club. First of all, it feels the hottest. It's surprisingly forgiving for a club that is relatively compact down by the ball. I like the look of it. I like that darker finish with that white bottom scoreline, really does help alignment. And I think the versatility of this club not only comes from the performance of the head, but also the adjustability on the hosel. If I wanted to adapt this club to be more suitable for shots off the tee, I could adjust the loft down to create a lower, stronger flight. But then if I was going to a different course where I knew that I would need to hit it more into greens on par fives, I could adjust the loft higher and get a higher ball flight for those shots. So obviously it comes in a few different lofts as well, so you've got so many options to choose from in this club. It's not just a club that you can hit stingers with off the tee and that's it. You know, it's not a one-dimensional club. My previous review video of the Gapper range actually suggested that it was more of a one-trick pony, but having tested it further today, I can safely say with confidence that it is much more than that. You know, this is actually one of the more versatile utility irons on the market with that adjustability. Appreciate this isn't massively confidence inspiring because of its size. You've got the mid option to choose from if you want, but I think this kind of provides the best of everything really for me, and that's why this is the model that I would probably pick, and I'm thinking about putting it in my bag instead of the Gapper mid, which I currently have. So food for thought for me. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that comparison test. Let me know what you think, comment on the video. Of course, click the like button if you haven't already. I appreciate it's a bit dark here at West Hill today, but hopefully you've enjoyed that test and it's given you some insight into the utility iron that might be best suited for your game in 2018.